My name is Barry Nicholsberg. I am Chief Development Officer for Estate and Gift Planning at the Carter Center. And on behalf of President and Mrs. Carter, I want to thank you so very much for being with us. Joining me today is Mark Williams. He's a Senior Associate Director, also in the Office of Estate and Gift Planning. And he and I will be leading this off. And if you have questions, please use the chat function to ask them. If we can't get to them immediately, we certainly have time at the end for Q&A. The other part of this is that we are going to be always available to you. You've received the PowerPoint presentation through a PDF, but if you just click on our cards, it will get you to us. I really, first of all, I must say to you, we're talking about a lot of different financial vehicles today, life insurance being one of them. We don't sell life insurance. We have no dog in that fight at all. We do not sell commercial annuities, but we definitely want you to understand what those are, how they work, and let you decide whether or not that's something that would work well into your financial planning. This program is as important for those who are 18 as those who are 98. And so we welcome you here, and we thank you so much for being supportive of the Carter Center, and certainly for giving your trust that we know that you know that we can help answer some of these questions and do so in English. That said, Mark happens to be a trusts and estates attorney, so English is not his first language, but we've been working on it now for several years. I think he may get through it, and if he doesn't, I'll be right here to interpret for you. With that, Mark, I wonder if you could give us the disclaimer.
Absolutely, a great warning there, and how right you are, the need to try to speak in English. So I'll try to spare you all the jargon there that's on the screen in front of you, other than to just quickly summarize. I am an attorney, will not be giving legal advice to anyone individually during this, but what we are doing is trying to provide you with some information that you can use. What we really wanted to do here was to take the time to address an issue. What Barry and I have come to realize and to know over the last few years, Barry much longer than that, I've only been around for a little while, but one of the things we've come to realize is that fewer than 50% of all people, all adults, have any kind of an estate plan whatsoever. And so we wanted to put together this introduction to estate planning series so that you could have enough information, know enough of the vocabulary, the language, to be able to make an informed decision, or at least start considering the subject. The material is so very important for your loved ones, for those that you leave behind. So I want to just make a quick note that as we go forward today, we're not going to be talking about every type of different insurance, and we're also not going to be talking about every different type of commercial annuity that's out there. One of the things to know is that they are variable, they're contracts, and so you can include or exclude many different things. But what we are going to do is get you comfortable with the information and the language so that you can go forward and take care of your family, your loved ones, and your estate plans. So one thing too, before we go on any further, is just to make note that what we are talking about here today can be applied for support for the Carter Center and any other not-for-profit organization that you support. Hope that you will use that to benefit all of the worthwhile organizations that you're following and partnering with. So let's take a look at where we're going to be going today. We're going to take a look at some of the different types of life insurance and commercial annuities that are out there, and we'll look at some of the basic fundamental ways that you can actually plan with each of these important estate planning tools, and we'll finish up with a look at charitable gift annuities, which are really a wonderful way to go forward and increase your partnership with your favorite organizations. So hang on, we're going to make our way there, starting with life insurance. So virtually everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with life insurance. It's a very, very common planning tool. It's very cost effective and flexible. And I would wager a guess that most people at some point in their life actually do have some sort of life insurance that's covering them. So This means to get coverage in place, you're dealing with an insurance company and a contract, and those are regulated by state law, often by federal law, and sometimes securities laws, depending on how you're actually putting money into them. So that's important to know. But again, on this idea of a contract, it is so important anytime you start evaluating life insurance, a commercial annuity, to be sure you understand the contract, all of the terms in it, and that you read it all the way through. Now, before I bore you with any more of that, we're going to keep on with some of the insurance basics, and I'd like to ask Barry to pick it up for us there.
I'll be happy to do so. First of all, the very first basic is that a life insurance policy is backed by the company that you're doing business with. It's not backed by any federal program. There's no insurance for your insurance. And so if that life insurance company should go out of business, there's not much you can do about it. And that life insurance policy will just sort of wither and die. So be very careful. Be very careful of an agent. They're only sold by agents or companies directly. But the agent who says, well, we're way too big to fail, just say two words to that agent: Lehman Brothers. Also too big to fail. One day was there and next day was gone. And so I don't believe in the too big to fail. There is a leap of faith here. Not that you shouldn't take it, but just be aware that that exists. Most life insurance policies are sold by agents, but a few of them are sold directly by the companies. I'll give you one example. If you watch daytime television, you may well see Colonial Insurance saying, if you're over 65 or whatever the magic age is, you don't need a physical, we will automatically accept you for up to $5,000 or $10,000 in life insurance. And that is an example of the company marketing directly to its audience. So just know, please, that that's a possibility. The second other part that I want to talk to you just very, very briefly about is that you will need to name a beneficiary. It can be multiple beneficiaries, but that will be the person or the organization or both that will receive the value of that life insurance when you pass. And so you can name anyone. You could name children, grandchildren, it makes no difference. So the term that's used for that money passing to a relative or a favorite organization is called a death benefit. I hate that term, but that's what they call it. And so with that, Mark, let me feed it right back to you.
Excellent. Yeah, we unfortunately, I think it pains Barry and I both to hear that term, and we kind of cringe a little bit. So again, just wanting you guys to have the language that you'll hear while you're out there talking with folks. So another important thing to keep in mind, again, we're going to talk about this a few times with the life insurance and with the annuities, is that, again, this money that'll be paid out to your loved ones, that really is only backed by the assets of the insurance company who's issuing that life insurance policy. So making sure that you take the time to do your homework on those organizations that you're going to do business with is just critical. One of the other things to know too, again, about life insurance agents and the brokers out there earning their commissions anytime you create a sale, is that part of their job is to also help you to compare policies so that you're looking at the same types of coverages, an apples to apples comparison, if you will. And so that's part of what they're getting paid for. But some people do get a little concerned when they find this out. So we wanted to just share that right up front so you can factor that into this calculus as you're going forward. One of the other things to sort of look at are basically two main types of insurance. And I'll start first with term life insurance. This is a type of coverage that you buy for a set period of time. Usually right at the beginning, you'll choose some coverage period, 10, 20, 30 years. And if something should happen to you, you pass away during that time period, the money that you've bargained for, you've put this contract in place for, is going to go to your loved ones. Now, there are some different variations on that concept. So the level term policy basically pays the exact same amount, no matter if you die at year 1 or at year 30 in a term policy. But there are some different policies out there that will actually reduce the amount of money that gets paid out to your loved ones over time. And this is called a decreasing term policy. Real major issue there, or major differentiating factor, excuse me, is going to be cost, most likely. And that's why you would see that. So it is just something to keep in mind as you're out there and evaluating these different types of insurance products. And for the whole life, Barry, I'd like to ask you to pick it up for us.
So there are, whole life is a kind of policy that has the potential to have a very steady premium for life and will have a death benefit that is guaranteed upon your death. And it's there for your entire life. If you pay the premiums, it stays, doesn't go up, doesn't go down. It's just right there. The younger and healthier you are, the less expensive it can be, would be. I meet people all the time who say, well, you know, I really don't have I love the Carter Center, but I just cannot possibly afford to give you the money that I wish I could. And then we talk about life insurance, because sometimes they could take a life insurance, whether it's term or whole life, and for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a year could perhaps make $500,000 or more dollar gift eventually. There are some advantages to that, and we will talk about those in a little while. But under whole life, after 21 years, as a rule, there's enough cash value that's built up that it will pay the premium. So if you took it out at 20, by the time you're 41, you can pretty much talk to your agent and say, I'd rather not spend any more money, and you won't need to, because it's generating enough capital to pay the premiums. You can even borrow against whole life policies. There really is a cash value there as you pay. So if you've paid in for 10 years or 15 years and you need a loan, you can essentially loan the money, your money, to yourself. And that's a pretty popular way to do business. There's something called a universal life policy. And with a universal life policy, the funds are not invested in the stock market. And so it's you just have to understand where they are invested, and that's as much up to you as it is the agent and the company itself. So it does have the possibility, the premiums, the death benefit can perhaps go up and down. You still have a cash value to it. There's also something called the variable annuity, and these funds are invested in the stock market. And so if the stock market goes way up, it's entirely possible that your insurance portfolio will go way up. And if it goes way down, well, your policy, your death benefit may go down with it. And all of that is dependent upon the contract that you sign. All we want to do today is let you know what the parameters are, so that when you are speaking with an agent, or 5 years from now you decide, yes, that's something I want to do, what did they say? You can go back to the notes and see just what it was we were talking about today, in hopes that it will be of benefit to you then. So some of the issues, as I mentioned before, age is a major factor here. If you're 20 years old, you could buy a whole lot of insurance that you couldn't begin to touch if you were 80 years old. Your gender is also very important. Women tend to live longer than men, and health is a very important factor. If unfortunately, I've known 20-year-olds who have already beaten cancer once or even twice, have heart conditions, and I've known 80-year-olds who don't take a single pill all day long. They don't need it. They're just healthy as they can be. So health is a very important factor because the insurance company is weighing that they will end up making money off the premiums that you provide. With that, let me turn it back to Mark.
Excellent. So as we're talking about all of this information, it's probably a question starting to come to mind now. Who would actually be getting life insurance and why? So let's talk a little bit about that. If you have minor dependents or anyone for that matter who depends on you, having life insurance in place to cover any expenses that might be ongoing can be very, very helpful and important for them, making sure they've got what they need. Also, if you do have medical expenses, things like that, that are somewhat expensive, having a life insurance policy in place really can make a difference in terms of reducing that money that may otherwise be paid by your estate or out of the inheritance for your loved one. So same thing goes for taxes. If you're in a state that has a death or an estate tax, you see this happen. There are 16 states that do, so you see that used commonly in those areas. Or if you have federal estate tax due, if you're a business owner and there are LLCs or other things that are paying you income directly, you might have quite a substantial income tax event in your final year, and you may need some insurance policies in place to cover some of those costs so you don't have to sell the business or other property. So outside of that, creating or adding on to an inheritance, one of the other major ways. I had clients when I was in law practice who would use life insurance, but now the thing I think I like most is seeing people use them to make charitable gifts. Again, it's so easy to name a charity on a beneficiary form, so this kind of gift doesn't require an attorney or sophisticated planning. So just something that you can keep in mind as you're thinking about this. And one of the other things we used to talk to people about, again, back when I was practicing law, is as they would come in and thinking about what kinds of things they wanted to give to their loved ones, you often talk about probate avoidance. Now, what is that? So when you pass away, your loved ones will take your will to a court, and they'll basically ask the court to help basically divide up all of the property and transfer it to the people that you selected in your will. So one of the things is that just takes a lot of time. It can take a lot of money, and the less you have to go through that process, the better in most cases. And so life insurance is great. It doesn't have to go through that process. If your loved ones need money after you pass, a life insurance policy can get that money to them quickly without a long drawn out process. So you see that typically done. And it's also important to remember that for your loved ones who will be inheriting this life insurance policy, they're not going to have any income taxes due when they get that money. That's very important because there are certain other types of things you might want to give them, like your retirement account. That could come with some serious tax consequences, and we'll talk about those a little bit more as we go forward. So as you're talking about these life insurance policies, you're looking at your estate plans, it is just absolutely critical to keep in mind that the beneficiaries that you name, they have an absolute right to the money when you pass away from the insurance company. So why I say this is so important is because if you have something happen, say you've got an old policy you forgot about, you were married and then got remarried, you never updated that beneficiary form for your new spouse, that old spouse of yours is going to be entitled to that money no matter what. And that can lead to some really serious and ugly fights. So please, common advice is to check your estate plans every 5 years. In this situation, what you really want to do is anytime you have a major change in circumstances, that's also another really important time to be thinking about doing these updates. So I also like to make mention to folks about, again, this way that you can give to charity with a life insurance policy maybe you don't need anymore. Talk about making a real difference. So again, we talked about this using a beneficiary form to update your estate plans. You can actually take care of your loved ones and your favorite charities by assigning a percentage of that insurance policy to your favorite organizations and to your loved ones. So you don't have to give an all or a nothing kind of a gift. This is a really good way to kind of, do both and take care of everyone. But Barry alluded to this earlier, and it's one of our favorite strategies. Let's say you do have this insurance policy that's a whole life policy or otherwise, and you know, your kids are grown, your loved ones are grown, you've got enough other assets, you really don't need that policy anymore. And you're thinking about some ways that you might go forward and fulfill some of your philanthropic goals. Well, you could give a life insurance policy to the Carter Center and get an upfront tax deduction for making that gift. And each year, as you pay the premiums or would be needing to pay the premiums that are coming due, if you instead wrote a check to the Carter Center for the amount of those premiums, you'll get another tax deduction on top of it for making those annual payments just like you would have before. So this is a really great way to amplify different planning and philanthropic goals that you may have. So something that we like to share and hope that you'll consider. With that, we're going to move on to commercial annuities, and I'd like to send it back over to you, Barry.
I'd like to clarify, just I want to make absolutely certain you folks understand what he just said, that if you have a life insurance policy and you physically give that policy to the Carter Center and you name the Carter Center as the beneficiary, then if you still have premiums due, you can send that money to the Carter Center and it becomes tax deductible. The Carter Center then takes that money, turns around and pays the premium. And yes, it's absolutely legal. There's no funny business in that whatsoever. The next area we want to talk about is commercial annuities. These two are sold by and guaranteed by insurance companies. Not every insurance company offers them, but a lot of them do. And it's well worth your consideration because you should know what's out there. Later on, we'll talk about charitable gift annuities, but right now we're going to focus on commercial annuities. And they can be for a period of years. You could say, okay, I'm going to do this for 10 years or 20 years, and then you just give me back what I put into it. Or it can have any number of variables, one of which is that you can have them guarantee that your principal will not lose 1 penny. And that's really important. If you are averse to risk management and you are concerned that if you give this company $100,000 to create a commercial annuity, that potentially that money could actually go down under certain circumstances, you can make sure it doesn't. So you can also pay for these in one lump sum, or you can pay them over time. And so they can be as flexible as you need them to be. You can make that beneficiary just you, or you and a spouse, or you and another person, or you can make it just for somebody else. You don't have to be part of that policy at all, other than the fact that you paid for it to be created. So just know that that's an option for you. Your annuity income will depend upon the starting date as much as anything else. If you say, well, I'm going to defer my starting date, so I'm going to give the insurance company this money now, whatever it is, and I'm going to wait 1, 2, 3, 10 years before I start drawing on my annuity and getting annuity payments, then your interest rate will go higher because they have that much more time to invest your money and, I trust, make that money grow. You have a lot of options here, and you can talk with your agent, because companies don't sell these directly. You do have to work through an agent, and you can talk with the agent about what you are trying to get out of this. Are you trying to replace some income during your retirement years? Are you trying to make sure that children or grandchildren or a favorite charity are taken care of later on, supported? All of those things are possible. And I will tell you that, depending upon who you're working with, but they really should help you do the due diligence and make sure that this is not the entirety of your retirement plan, because there is some risk. It's just, there is. As I said before, there's no company too big to fail. So you do need to make sure that you're comfortable with it. And with that, Mark, why don't I turn it back to you?
So as we're talking about annuities, one thing to bear in mind is that there are, again, a great number of different types of annuities. And so we want to talk to you a little bit more about those specific variations. We'll start with the fixed commercial annuity. So this is a really easy thing to sort of keep in mind. It's a lot like a certificate of deposit. You'll set up this contract, usually with a lump sum payment up front, and it can start immediately or be deferred, but the thing that you're buying is basically a guaranteed return. And so that's a really, really wonderful way to plan for certainty. You know you'll have an amount of money coming in every month that will just always be there. It can be very helpful for that kind of, again, risk-averse planning. One thing we really, really want to make sure you understand is that not all of these commercial annuities offer money to those that you, to your loved ones when you pass away, a death benefit term. And so you really, really must pay attention to that. If it's something that you're thinking when you're buying this annuity, make sure you talk just explicitly with your agent about whether or not that's going to be a part of this particular annuity. So the other, or one of the other major flavors of the commercial annuity is the variable commercial annuity. And variable commercial annuities are invested. They generally are a more limited set of investments that are available to you. And because of the money being invested, there can be some fluctuation in the account value and the performance. A lot of people will buy these with a guaranteed minimum payout, but do know there is not always a guaranteed minimum payout. Again, that fluctuation in the market is a risk that these companies are watching very closely. So one of the other things to think about too, this isn't always the case if you're having an invested annuity, they can be better for people who are going to let that money sit and be invested long term, or who will add to those investments long terms. So again, not always the case. If you've got $100,000, you could always put that into an annuity and let it sit and be invested, and it will grow, produce a greater income for you. But we more often see those used by young people who are building up toward a sort of a retirement substitute rather than needing immediate money. Now, the last real variation on this that I want to talk to you about is what's called an indexed commercial annuity. And as you might guess, these are sort of indexed to a stock index like the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones. And this can be really, really good. If you're interested in participating in the stock market, but you really like the idea of a guaranteed income, this can be a tool to help you get there. It's important, again, to just keep in mind the value of the annuity could go up or down depending on the performance of the investments. But one thing we really, really want to make sure we take the time to emphasize is that with these indexed and variable commercial annuities, if you're actually participating in that stock market gain, 2019 was a pretty good year at 30%. Most average years could be 4 or 5%. So one thing to note, a great year like last year where it's a 30% increase in the stock, you are not going to get the entire increase, that 30%. Most of these annuities come with a limitation capping you at 10, 20, maybe up to 50%. It's very rarely that you'll get that full stock market gain. So be aware of that. It can be something that you purchase. Again, we talk about the variability of these products. So you could choose to pay more to get that full investment performance, but know that's something you have to be thinking about from the very beginning. So creating commercial annuities, it's really important, as Barry mentioned, to think about if you don't need the money right now, how long can you let it go? Because that always comes with a much better payout. And it gives you flexibility too, right? Starting immediately with money may not always be what you need. So one of the things that you really need to think about too, for those out there with employer-sponsored retirement plans, we're seeing more and more now that these plans include annuity options. If you're going to use those, please know that those are going to be, generally speaking, pre-tax, meaning you haven't paid any tax on them. And so that can really affect the way that the money comes back out to you when you ultimately start drawing down the funds, meaning more taxes will be due. So Again, lots of things to be aware of as you're considering these, but another thing to think about and to be aware of that I'm going to ask Barry to talk about are some of the potential costs. Barry?
The costs are, there are. The company itself has a commission depending if it's fixed index or variable. Fixed may have a 1 to 1.5% cost rate to you, the annuitant, annually, where a variable may have a 3 to 4% because they're more hands-on. And that's very expensive. That's 4% is 400 basis points. It's expensive. It may be well worth it, but it's expensive, just so you know. And as I had mentioned before, age, gender, health, all of these things that are important for life insurance are also important for charitable annuities. Are you going to delay? Then some of the costs, there's a commission paid to the agents. If you decide to surrender your policy early, you're going to terminate it early, there is a fee. If you are less than 59 years and 6 months old when you terminate, there's often a penalty fee. Those are all things in the contract, but if suddenly you find you really need the money and you just have to get it, it could cost you dearly. If you have a $100,000 policy and there's a 10% penalty, that's $10,000. It's a lot of money. So you may make that choice. Well, I have to wait until I'm 59 and a half and a day before I surrender the policy, so I don't have to pay the 10%. Of course, that's assuming that you need to surrender the policy. These are set up to make sure that you can replace retirement income. You may want to have your family pay estate tax with this money. It might increase inheritance to loved ones. And it also can be used to make a charitable gift. Lots of people leave the Carter Center either as the sole beneficiary or one of the beneficiaries of these commercial annuities. And it has made a huge difference to the Carter Center. And whatever we can do to help you understand the process, we are more than happy to do so. Please know that the monies that come in from a commercial annuity do not go through probate. But if you have creditors, they oftentimes will come first. And as Mark said before, please update your beneficiary form at least every 5 years. Take a look at it and make sure it's still current. We say this about your will, any annuities, life insurance, whatever it is, make sure that at the very most, you wait 5 years between your reviews because things do change. Beware of the annual fees because, as I say, they can range anywhere from 1 to 4%, and that can really make a huge difference. And I think with that, Mark, I can turn it over to you.
So one last thing I'll just take a second to emphasize on these annuities is, again, if you have one of these options in your workplace plan, please be sure that you're not going to be trying to take money out of this early before age 59 and 6 months, because if you do, there are additional penalties and taxes that come along from the IRS, in addition to anything that may be tacked on from the insurance company. So don't want you having to pay those things unnecessarily. One of the things to know too is that fixed commercial annuities can be really, really great for, again, this steady, predictable income. When we used to have people who would come into the law firm who were quite risk averse or were looking to basically create a floor. What do I mean by that? We had people who said, you know, if all of my other investments failed, everything else went away, is there a way to have a backup plan so I know I'm guaranteed at least this much money per month? And quite often, that's exactly what people are buying into with a fixed annuity. So I want you to understand some of the context, how estate planning attorneys would use those or suggest they be used. And think about this, again, without having the ability to participate in the stock market, you know, those fluctuations being gone, you might hear some people actually pitch these fixed annuities to you as protecting the principal. And while that can sort of happen, As you're drawing down on it, obviously the amount that's available is going to shrink down. So just know that that's sort of one of the ways people talk about them, and it's sort of an important concept to be keeping your eye on. It could be something people might manipulate. But one of the other things to know too is if you're setting this fixed income over time, there's going to be inflation, and those dollars may be worth less. We've been in a low inflation environment for quite a while here, but ultimately those dollars could be worth less in the future than they are today as a result of inflation. So make sure you've got that as a part of your plan. Now, as we've talked about the variable annuities, one of the things, the variable commercial annuities I mentioned are good for younger workers. But it doesn't have to be just younger. You could be someone who's nearing retirement, who has some extra cash to put aside and leave invested. I want to make sure that I make that clear. So be sure to pay attention to those investment fees. Again, we talked about how there are fees for commissions and fees on setup, and there are all of these other fees that come in. Adding on top the investment part with an annuity can lead to another 2 to 3% per year in terms of costs that you're having to pay. Again, we talked about sort of a good year in the market could be 4 or 5%, or an average year. So you want to just keep that in mind. But for all of my tax planners out there who are looking at these as a possible option for income, know that if you've had one of these variable annuities, it's invested, it's grown, you're going to pay higher taxes on those monies as you take them out than if you had just invested in a brokerage account or individual stocks on your own. And that's because of capital gains taxes. That's a special lower tax rate that the government applies to your investments. It can be as low as 0% for people who don't have very much income coming in. Most often it's either 15 or 20%, depending on what income range you're in. So if you're in a 22 to a 28% bracket, which is pretty common for most people in terms of income tax percentage, you're going to be paying a lot more than you had to just because you have this money invested in the annuity. So please keep that in mind as you're looking at these. And so as we're talking about this, these fees, these taxes, sort of the less preferential treatment. It's definitely something that you want to keep in mind, and you'll often hear this said from professional advisors. Make sure that you contribute the maximum that you can to your 401k or your employer plan. If you've got some more money after that, put it into an IRA. If you have some more money after that, put it into a Roth IRA, and then and only then, maybe then, consider an annuity. And we'll sort of look at some of these different account types and why that's so important. So we talked a little bit about these, alphabet soup names. Know that an individual retirement account and these employer plans, what's most important about them is that you put your money into them without paying any taxes on them. And that's great because that means you're investing more money. But ultimately, you have to pay the piper. When you pull all of that money back out, it's going to have income taxes that are getting pulled out of it. So make sure that you're aware of that. And that's why this next vehicle is just really so great. A Roth IRA is a simple variation on this retirement account strategy. You pay the taxes on the money first, and then you put it into the Roth and invest. Well, no matter how much the account goes up, you'll never have to pay another dime in taxes on the money you pull out of that account. So it can be a really, really powerful way to sort of go ahead and prepay the taxes now. And that's especially important since 2017, since the new tax law went into effect, because the rates now are lower for almost all people than they have been for a long time. And if you think those rates are going to go up in the future, it can make sense to lock in a low tax rate now. It's a very common planning strategy that we're seeing. So, I really hate to do this, but Barry, I want to ask if you could talk with us about some of the important, maybe cringeworthy rules about controlled contributions to these things. Do you mind?
I'm going to talk about them, but I'm going to talk about them very quickly, not because I'm trying to confuse you, but because we're only on slide 34 and it's 39 minutes after 5, so we really should be on slide 39. So buckle up, folks. We're ready to go. Everything has a limit. So if you're contributing to an IRA, it may have a $6,000 a year limit. Once you hit that, you can't put any more in. If you're over 50, you can make it $7,000. If you're investing in a 401k, most of the time you can put in $19,500. But if you're over 50, it can go up to $26,000. And then you move to a 457B, as Mark was saying before, you may be able to put away as much as $39,000 in certain instances. Then we get into all these various limitations and whether you are head of household or whatever you may be. The next several slides, all the way to 39, have lots of fine print. The only way to know what that says is with a magnifying glass. That is really fine print. But I encourage you, please use a magnifying glass. It's not difficult to understand. It's just a lot of fine print. And with that, we're past 39, all the way back up to 40. It's 40 minutes. And Mark, it's yours.
Excellent. So I do have to say one thing before we move on. I just wanted to reemphasize this point. If you're looking over these slides and it looks like one of those rules or the exceptions to the exception applies to you, please go see an estate planning attorney, go see your financial advisor, and make sure you talk about how those rules are going to impact you. I promise you wouldn't be the first one to have run into some difficulty around those. Won't be the last. I have friends who are attorneys who have been tripped up by these. So again, it's important to make sure you know what you're dealing with there. But let's move on to something I think we can all agree is a little bit more fun to talk about: the charitable things that we do. And what better way to support them than with a charitable gift annuity? These are really, really excellent vehicles for making sure you fulfill your philanthropy, even if you have your philanthropic wishes, even if you have limited means. It's a great way to have a mutual benefit. And so one thing to make clear, these are not sort of like commercial annuities. Often the rates are much less because there is a charitable component. And there is no ability to sort of pay into these over time. You can just keep building up the value, but you could set up multiple annuities if you'd like. And they will pay you for a lifetime. It's not a period of years thing where you have to worry about that. So you do get an immediate tax deduction for your establishing that charitable gift annuity. And as we just mentioned, with the rates maybe being a little less preferential with the charitable gift annuities, the offset from the tax deduction and some of the tax-free income that comes back to you each year as a part of the charitable gift annuity itself can really make a big difference in terms of catching up to what those commercial rates would be. So one of those things we really just want to sort of emphasize is that this idea of low rates and looking and comparing investments, right now charitable gift annuity rates are between 3 and 8% for most people, and that's higher than certificates of deposits and treasuries. And again, these are guaranteed income streams that you're talking about here. So this can be a really, really helpful way of diversifying away from some of the volatility in the stock market. And again, just having mutual benefit. We do always make sure to note that charitable gift annuity payout rates are set by the American Council on Gift Annuities. This is important because they're the only body who's sort of gotten the blessing of the IRS to set these rates. And as long as the organization follows those rates when they're creating annuities, they're going to be fine. No issues in terms of legality or anything like that. But not all organizations do actually follow those rates, and that can be a shame. So we always talk to folks, as they're thinking about these, saying, well, maybe I don't have the cash to set up the annuity. And one of the great things is you can actually create a charitable gift annuity without having to use cash. If you have appreciated property, vacation home, stocks, gold, all of those things can be used to establish the annuity. And if the property has grown in value, you get another great tax benefit. You avoid some of that capital gains tax that we talked about earlier. And again, with low rates right now, it's possible to arrange the gift annuity agreement so that you have a maximum amount of tax-free income coming back to you each month or each year. So again, very, very powerful way to sort of look at your income tax planning as you're going into retirement. So we always like to try to help you out with strategies that can help you to really magnify the benefits that are out there. So Barry, would you mind talking to folks a little bit more about how they might go about planning with some of these gift annuities?
Well, I want to re-emphasize something Mark said moments ago, and that is that 99% of all not-for-profits that offer charitable gift annuities follow the rules established by the American Council on Gift Annuities, but not all. If you come to us and you say, I would like to establish a charitable gift annuity, and I'm whatever your age, I'm 70 years old and it's just for me, or it's for me and my spouse, or however, and we give you a percentage return. If you go to the Cleveland Orchestra, you're going to get the same percentage return. If you go to your alma mater, chances are pretty good you're going to get the same percentage return. So then there's these outliers who say, no, we're not going to follow that. Here's the problem. The money you put into a charitable gift annuity is most likely guaranteed by the nonprofit organization. If it goes out of business, you could be in trouble if they don't follow these national guidelines. The Carter Center has to have reserve accounts, and our reserve accounts are millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. So heaven forbid something should happen to the Carter Center, your annuity is still guaranteed. And if it, heaven forbid, if that happened and we went out of business, we would then end up giving your annuity to another very reputable organization to continue the payments. And if that couldn't happen, you would still get the payments because of our reserve accounts. So please be aware, ask those questions. They're really important questions. If you want to increase your charitable your income from a charitable gift annuity, you might think about postponing it for a year or two. You might look into a flexible charitable gift annuity. So when you take it out, you can see, well, if I wait 1 year, I get this percentage rate. If I wait 2 years, it's this percentage rate. If I wait 20 years, it's this percentage rate. And those numbers will go up on an annual basis. And you can decide at that point. You can also decide if you want paid monthly, quarterly, annually, however you wish to do it. It's extremely flexible in that way. There are state requirements, organizations that either solicit and or accept charitable gift annuities from people living in most states, must be registered with those states. You know, if somebody comes along and says, well, I want to offer you a charitable gift annuity, and you ask, well, are you registered in my state? I live in California or Florida or Wisconsin or Hawaii or wherever. And well, no, we're not registered. Just walk away. Just walk away. Now, how else I can put that? Then charitable gift annuities are really important, and they are important because you can use them in a variety of ways, much of which was affected by the Secure Act that was signed in December of 2019. And so Mark and I have done a webinar on Secure Act, and in a couple of slides, I think it's slide 51, we will show you, you can just click right there and be taken to that webinar and come up to speed on that. The Secure Act really has a huge effect on IRAs and Roths and 401ks and 403bs and 457, all retirement plans. So please make note of that. Mark, please take it on from slide 46. Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit more now, unfortunately, about these negative tax issues that the Secure Act caused. So if you were fortunate enough to inherit an IRA from a loved one before January 1st of this year, count yourself to be among the luckiest people on the planet. You have the benefit of being able to take the money out of that account over the duration of your life expectancy. So the warm and fuzzy IRS basically guesses how long we're all going to live. And there is a table for that. So what they'll do is they'll require you, under the old rules, to take all the money out within the number of years they expect you to live. Right. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. The great thing about this, it allows you to keep your money invested for longer. You were pulling money out over a longer period of time, so it was less taxes that were due. You got a little bit more income out of it, having it invested that way. So it's really an ideal situation. But the Secure Act, as of January 1, did away with that treatment, and now virtually everyone has to withdraw all of the money out of an inherited IRA within 10 years. That's really, really important because that means you're going to have to pull money out faster and pay taxes faster. It's going to be invested for less time and produce less income. So that's an important thing to know in terms of law changes just this past year. So you might be wondering, do any folks out there still qualify for that lifetime stretch rule under the old law? And yes, spouses continue to have the ability to take those IRAs that they inherit, roll them over to their own account, and take them over their life expectancy. This next one I kind of always laugh at. Non-spouse beneficiaries less than 10 years younger than you. What the heck does that mean? Let's say you have two siblings. You've got a brother who is 11 years younger than you and a sister who is 9 years younger than you. And let's say you were thinking about leaving them your retirement account. If you left the retirement account to your sister, who's 9 years younger than you, she can take that money out over the course of her life expectancy. Remember, stays invested longer, more income, less taxes. But if you decided you wanted to give that same account to your brother, who's 11 years younger than you, he's only going to have 10 years to take all of that money out, and he's going to have a lot more taxes due. I don't know, maybe you don't like this brother as much. Maybe you want him to pay the taxes. If so, this is a good way to make him do it. But it's just a really important thing to keep in mind in terms of who actually still gets the benefit of this really important lifetime withdrawal rule. Now, a couple of other people who are still getting the benefit of that rule are the disabled and chronically ill. Those terms are typically associated with Social Security. So if you've got a loved one who's in that boat, just make sure you know that there are some important rules for them. But if you've got minor children, see, this is an interesting rule. They get a lifetime stretch, but only until they reach the legal age of majority or adulthood, which varies by state. Once they hit that magic number, 18 to 21 usually, then they have to take all the money out within 10 years. And that's going to come with some important consequences. Barry, would you mind talking about those?
It could really affect, if those young people are participating in Medicare or Medicaid, it could just stop that. It could stop Social Security, disability income. It could affect any sort of financial aid, student financial aid in college for either loans and or scholarships. There may be other federal or state plans that are also affected by it. So please just be aware of these things. This is what estate planning is really all about. Moving right along, because we're running out of time here. If you decide that you would like to create a charitable gift annuity for someone else, you can do that with your retirement funds if you specify in your will that these retirement funds are to go to, I'll use the Carter Center as an example, whatever is left in my retirement account, $100,000 is going to go to the Carter Center specifically to establish a charitable gift annuity for so-and-so. There are no taxes taken out then. And it's just that simple. And 100%, instead of these massive amounts of money going into someone's pocket and then having to pay ordinary income tax. This is a much better way to do it. And we're happy to discuss that with you whenever you like. With that, if you turn to slide 51, you will see where you can tap that link and go on to see the webinar that we did some time ago. With that, Mark, why don't you chat a little bit and we'll go right to Q&A.
Excellent. So Again, we know we've tossed a lot of information your way today. Thanks for bearing with us. If you do have any questions, you can always reach me or Barry. And if you're ready to take that extra step, you want to just talk a little bit more about the vocabulary, we can always do that. But if you're thinking about going forward, talking to an agent, or you're sitting with your estate planning attorney, and you'd like for us to attend to talk about ways that you might be able to look at your plan and include more for philanthropy, we're always happy to do that. Again, it's our privilege and our pleasure to be able to do that, to assist. So please don't hesitate. If you need to reach us, just click on either of the cards here that you see in the presentation that you downloaded. It'll launch an automatic email to me or to Barry. And also feel free to use the telephone numbers that you see there. So despite the fact we're not in the office right now due to COVID-19, those numbers are forwarding to our cell phones. So you'll be guaranteed to reach us anytime, anywhere. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Q&A. And Barry, I have a question here from an individual who's asked that they're interested in setting up a charitable gift annuity, perhaps for a grandchild. Are there any special considerations or things that they might need to be aware of?
Well, lots of things to be aware of. First of all, depending upon the amount, you may get into a situation where you're giving, where you will be responsible for paying gift tax. It really depends. If you give more than $15,000 to any one person in the course of a year, then there may be ways to avoid the gift tax, but by and large, you may end up paying it as well. And this, again, it is a very individual situation. So it's well worth talking with someone. Mark and I are happy to kick around some ideas, but just know there is a $15,000 annual limit with some exceptions, and we don't have to. I know you folks have been drinking from a fire hose for the past hour. We've thrown so much material at you. When you have time to think, inhale, and digest, we will be delighted to answer whatever questions you may have. Mark, back to you.
So one thing I do want to add to that, as we talk about setting up annuities for other people, there are some important things to keep in mind with age. If you're establishing one of these for a grandchild or something like that, generally speaking, they have to be 65 years old before they can start taking withdrawals on that money. So it might be a long time coming for them. It's one thing that you just want to make sure that they don't need the money right away. But again, outside of some of those basic rules that we've discussed, these things can be really wonderful and flexible planning tools that can help you get around some of the negatives that happened with the Secure Act this year. And so if you take a look at our other presentation or go back and looking at the notes here, if you do have any questions, please, by all means, feel free to reach out to us. And with that, Barry, I'm going to turn it back over to you for our sign off.
Well, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being with us today. If you have a question a half hour from now, or a year from now, or 10 years from now, or whenever from now, please don't hesitate. If it has anything to do with estate planning, we will give our best advice we possibly can. If that benefits the Carter Center, that's tremendously helpful. If it benefits somebody else or just benefits you, it's perfectly all right. We're going to give you the same information. So we are delighted you would use us as a resource, just as one of many, I trust. And I guess we can call it at this point. I would like to say thank you for being with us. I would like to wish a very happy, healthy, and sweet new year to those of you who are of the Jewish faith. For those who are not of the Jewish faith, I will wish you a happy new year, just 3 months and 10 days early. And you can all celebrate and be wished a happy Halloween and Thanksgiving and whatever else is thrown in the middle of all of that. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're very happy to work with you because, as Mark said, COVID, everyone at the Carter Center is working from their homes. So the phones ring right through to our cell phones. It's very easy. We respond to emails and phone calls, whatever. With that, I want to say one last time, thank you for spending the last hour with us. If we can be of help, please let us know. Godspeed.